Hi there. This session I have picked 5 from the top losers from CoinGecko to go through with you. If you're new to my sessions, here are the key items I'll cover during the session. And these are not financial advice, they are just for education and research purpose only, and also discussion with you and the wider asset tech community. Let's start with the very first one, the Sky coin. This is the weekly chart of Sky. The way I see this with all these price spread, meaning these tall or longer candlesticks compared to the ones here, right? It looks to me the panic sell or whale buy period hasn't been over yet. So I am more inclined to think the panic over stage has yet surfaced, rather than saying the selling climax appeared during mid-November and that was the automatic rally. I am not going to declare that now, because the way I look at the volume, they are just a bit too high for a selling climax. Alright, so assuming that it's still waiting to get into the actual accumulation. Remember, when I talk about these very young coins with very little history, it's pretty much experimental because their price profile hasn't been set yet. Alright, they haven't gone through the bigger cycles back in 2020 all the way to 2023-24. So the massive climb and also the massive or the prolonged ice age period in 2002-2003. Okay, let's get into the daily chart and see what it looks like. It has gone through a period of downtrend since mid-September all the way into late November, and then a short uptrend till the end of the year, and then it dropped outside of the uptrend right at the very last few days of 2025. Currently, it's still going through the downtrend, so that's also another reason why I said when I look at this volume as well, it's pretty getting higher and higher. That's why I'm more inclined to think that the selling climax hasn't appeared yet. And for October 10th, it definitely has challenged way lower levels at around 1 cent. Okay, so for Sky, maybe it will continue to lose for a couple of more days or even weeks. Alright, let's look at the other losers on the chart. Next, we've got Toncoin. Toncoin looks to me a little bit better. It seems like it has gone through the panic over stage. You see the volume actually valley, there was a valley over there. And then it's going through a stage where the bulls are trying to build the sideways trading top. Alright, that's what we call automatic rally in the Wyckoff method. What comes after that is subsequent tests. Alright, it can be at a higher level or even deeper than where the selling climax was. So somewhere below, it can go somewhere below the orange key level of 1.463. October 10th tested the level of 0.508. So from a big picture point of view, let's assume the accumulation will continue for Toncoin. And it's also a very young coin. So be cautious, the things that I said, it's going to subject to quite a bit of changes when we see further the profile of Toncoin. Because it's quite tempting to tell a story that it might have got selling climax over here and then done a couple of rounds of more tests, and then this is a deeper test over here, because we don't see the full picture of how it started. So that's the risky part of it. Alright, because when we look at the other altcoins, it looks like that it might have had the selling climax earlier. This period of volume was also getting lower. Just that when I look at what happened over here, and given the fact that it's a younger coin, that's why I'm making this call to say this probably is the case compared to the section over here. So if we go to the daily, the downtrend that started somewhere in August last year finished somewhere around Christmas. So somewhere around December 25th, 26th, it confirmed that, you know, the bears and the bulls both agree that it's time to get outside of the previous downtrend. All right. However, you know, during accumulation cycle, it's normal for the price to trade sideways. Okay, that's for Toncoin. And next we've got WLFI, World Liberty Financial. So this one, again, very, very young coin. Making a bold call here, the panic sell whales buy period might have finished. Look at these volume over here, that's very flat. So let's hope that really is where the selling climax was back in mid-December, in that what it did over the past 2 weeks was setting the horizontal trading range top at around the light blue key level of 0.0183. And what to expect, you probably already have learned, like, you know, subsequent tests to check out paper hands and keep only those diamond hands, and then to show us a sign of strength, meaning white candlesticks with long white volume bars. It can be multiple shorter ones for both the candlesticks and the volume bars, or a few massive ones. All right, that's an indication of capital or money or people started, you know, coming back. Looking at the daily chart of WLFI, it's going through a slight uptrend. All right, it's still far for any of the crossing between the, you know, the ceilings and the bottoms of the uptrend. So it may continue for a while, or, you know, like I said, it may bounce right like that and then create a sign of strength, you know, going forward when we get deeper into February, right? Sometimes it's very quick, you know, within 2 to 3 weeks it can do it. But sometimes if the macro environment or the macro sentiment isn't that supportive, then it will take a little longer. It may be months. Next we've got Stellar. Stellar, interestingly, it's probably going through a point where it's somewhere between the distribution cycle, the blue ones, and the accumulation cycle. So it may be going through the, you know, the panic sell whales buy period, but the volume itself is just not very clear. You know, people were buying over the past few weeks around the orange key level of 211, but then this week when they try to break above the green key level of 2.245, challenge all the way to 0.260 light blue key level, it got heavily rejected by the bears back to somewhere near the yellow key level of 0.226. So that's why I'm thinking there is a chance that the selling climax might have appeared, but we have to observe for a week or two to really confirm. If that's the case, that means Stellar starting to accumulate at a much higher level compared to what it did during 2022 all the way into late 2024. Not a bad thing at all, but like I said, we have to observe for a couple of weeks before we can confirm that this panic sell whales buy period is over, because this is just uncertainty when I see what happened this week. If we look at the daily chart, the downtrend is actually still continuing for Stellar. That's also another reason why I said, you know, let's be a little bit conservative about where it is now. You know, the downtrend may still continue if capital really comes in like what it did. You know, in the past few days, you see these white volume bars at the beginning of 2026. If that comes back, then, you know, we know that it's probably right when what I said, the selling climax might be over. But let's not declare that too early. And I just want to bring the date tag across. So let me copy one and bring it back to Stellar. So Stellar, if the capital comes in, somewhere around 18th, a very bullish case, and there's only just about a week to 9 days left, somewhere before the 18th, if these kind of volume still comes in, it has a chance to declare the downtrend is officially over. However, the subsequent ones would be more likely looking at what's happening right now, assuming this is the mini uptrend within the bigger downtrend. Alright? So this crosses somewhere near the end of the month, somewhere around the 27th. So not too far from the 29th, where the ceiling of the downtrend crosses the light blue key level of 0.260. So let's give it an earlier date of Jan 27th, because if it does continue to trade along this uptrend line, when it gets to this wedge, alright, it's time to confirm, hey, is this uptrend over? Let's go back to find support from the lower key levels, or let's break out of the downtrend from that point onwards. So just to give you 2 dates before our next session. So next time when we come back, we'll definitely see what's going to happen for Stellar. Next, Monero. Monero is still enjoying its honeymoon, even though most of the altcoins are in a sea of red. However, it's somewhere close to, or some kind of exhibited the upthrust. It's a stage where FOMO continued, but not necessarily appear in every distribution cycle. So this time it came up, but at a certain point you see this long wick from the top, meaning the bears heavily sell over there, or the whales started offloading to the retail. And looking at the volume for this week, it isn't particularly high. So the way I see it is like the bulls and the bears are trying to stay within this zone, somewhere between the yellow key level of 416 all the way to 470. It won't be a surprise if it continues to range bound between this. Just to be careful, when the volume changes, the direction would change. If we go to the daily, the price is currently still trading along the uptrend. However, a few days back, right on the day we entered 2026, it entered the weaker half of the uptrend. Alright, previously it was trading on the stronger half. Only occasionally for 2-3 days, it dropped to the weaker half. Most of the time during, started early November all the way into December. Most of the time it has been trading within the stronger half. So now that it came down to the weaker half, just to find support along the yellow key level of 416.4, whenever it goes above the center line, this dotted line over here, it got rejected. The bears hit it hard, trying to suppress it to stay within the lower half. Alright, if that continues, you will see something like this. So this used to be how the trend goes, right? Pretty much aligning to the slope of the box, right? But if it continues to be suppressed by the center line, eventually we will see something like this. So meaning the slope will be smaller or lower than the original trend. That means the momentum is declining. So that's the first warning sign that the uptrend may be over. All right, but we're still early. Okay, if it continues to stay along the center line, that still holds the rate of surge or ascent. Only if it continues to head towards the bottom of the uptrend and stay over there for a couple of days, longer than what it did previously, then it's the time to think, okay, XMR maybe is probably going to come down for a sign of weakness where the demand depletes. Alright, it's too early. It's probably still enjoying the time, where it came down from the what we call the automatic reaction, but what it means is that people are taking profit from that point. Alright, that's why there was the dip. And then this, you can call this a second test. Those who bought the dip thinking the rally hasn't finished, got in, and whether they're going to get burnt, time will tell. Alright, if you want to get access to those individual sessions of particular projects earlier than the others for 2 days, feel free to join the channel membership. Thanks for those who have already joined. Really appreciate. Thanks for joining me. See you in other sessions.